your dreams. You can reach your goals. Beefcake! Beefcake!
Hi there, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to raving and ranting about board games, but usually more the latter part. We'll get on with the top 10 list in just a moment, but first, can I just say one quick word? As gamers, we find it hard to deal with empty shelves, some worse than others. You therefore want a supplier that has what you need at affordable prices and delivers on time. For me, that supplier is KIENDA. They offer a discount on bulk purchases as well as a point scheme for future acquisitions down the line. If there's a hot title you're after, chances are KIENDA's got it. Wingspan? Mine. Arc Nova? Mine. Eclipse? Actually, I hate that game, it's terrible, but you might like it. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So on this list, despite a bit of a headache, but don't worry, I'll persevere, I want to talk about bloated games. And this is specifically games where my rating and opinion for them has gone down or has been hindered by the fact that they've got too bloated. And this can be the fact that they've had way too many expansions to keep track of. It could be that the box and all the stuff in it, has got too big for it to be practical to take around. It could be that there's so many little sub-expansions that have their own little rules you just can't sort of deal with, so it's like, why do I bother owning these? And a lot of these will be down to size and expansions, where there's just too much of it now, and some of it is a self-inflicted problem, because you could argue, well, alright then, well, why don't you just buy the base set and that's it? Yes, that's fine, except I didn't buy the base set only in these occasions, I went and bought extra stuff, and so this is kind of a personal thing where for me it has been ruined a bit, but on the bloat side. You could argue that there is no game that would fit in this category if you just bought the base set for every single game in existence. Yeah, how many of you have done that? So yeah, this is essentially my 10 where I'm going to give my reasons why. There's not a huge amount to showcase because either A, I don't own these anymore, or B, they are so huge that I just cannot be bothered to get them from the shelf. Yeah, there is quite a few of them there and they are big. So this is my top 10 and we'll see how we get on. So let's try and lose a little bit of that weight and get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
My number 10 is a game that I do really enjoy, but I have not brought it out for a while because even with just one expansion, although it's one main expansion and a few Kickstarter expansions thrown on top, this one just becomes too much of an issue to sort of like, oh man, I gotta read all these rules again, okay, and then I've got to think, right, am I including this little module, do I need this, how do I set it up? And setting up is a bit of a problem because the game doesn't have a good insert for it. You've got these big stands to hold cards and everything, and the insert big box that did come out of it turned out to be crap.
We just make boxes here.
I'm talking on this occasion about Western Legends. Western Legends is a big amount of stuff to deal with, even with just the one big expansion and those little Kickstarter ones. But because I don't have an easy way to store this, I have to basically keep it in one box, maybe 1.5 boxes, I'm not sure, remember how I'm storing it. But you've then got the big playmat on the side, you've got a cardboard standee for, cardboard or wooden standee for the cards, the market that you buy, but then you've got all the little modules for how certain other bits work. There's a lot of sub rules, and then the expansion throws in another location, a different variant of the train to rob, and a few other bits and bobs here, and it's just like I can't remember exactly which bit is what, and it's deterred me from wanting to bring this out. I would like to, and it's certainly one on this list that I'm more like, do I hang on to this game or do I get rid of it? I'm more like, yeah, but I do remember having a lot of good times with it. But maybe this one I just need somebody else to take it to a convention, and then I can play their copy and go, oh yeah, this is the stuff I need to know, this is the stuff I need to keep, la la la. But things would be a lot better for this one if it just had a decent storage box, and so, unfortunately it never did. It got this big box that was released, but the box cost about £70–80, and this is just for the box and the insert. People are harping on the whole Lost Ruins of Arnak one, but at least that one gives you a couple of extra boards, an actual expansion as well as the box and storage solution. This one is literally just the box with a storage solution, and it's not even a good one. The amount of people who complain about the crumminess of this big box and insert is insane, and I'm not paying £70–80 for a crummy made insert box. You know, I need something decent. I need somebody to 3D print me a good insert for this game, tell me which of the stands I need, which I can get away with. I don't know, somebody just needs to do something with this game stat.
I beg to differ, sir.
Number 9 is a late entry to this list because originally I didn't really consider it until I tried to get it out like a few weeks ago, and I haven't still managed to get it out of the box. You know, this has been on my shelf and it's been unplayed for a while, but when I thought, yeah, that's a big box. Why did I need that? You can get it in a smaller container now, but I don't know. Let me try. I mean, it looks cool. It's got the settlement out. Let's see what I need out of it. And when I went through and looked at all the different bits and little expansions that are in there, of which I think there are 3 main expansions in this and then some Kickstarter editions, I sort of said to myself, why did I buy this big box? It's not really needed. And this is for Suburbia. Suburbia is a great Euro game. I do really like it. Great Euro city builder game. But when I went through that big box, the one that was done, I think it was done by Bezier. I don't think I think it was still Bezier. But this was like on the same kind of level as the Lost Ruins? No, Mad King Ludwig. You know, that game. Both of them have got boxes that are way too big for their games. And the problem with Suburbia is, well, twofold. Firstly, the way that box is designed and packaged is not the easiest for setting up the game, it must be said, or organizing it in a way that you can tell what's what. But also, it's a big box to store on your shelf. It's quite imposing for people when you say, oh yeah, let's play Suburbia. Boom, here's this massive cube. But also, when you actually think about it, Suburbia is fine in its base game form and possibly with the Suburbia Inc. expansion. Because the Suburbia Inc. one had those border tiles that you could use, as well as a few extra tiles, and that one's actually a good one to include. But the other ones, Nightlife, 5 Star, and I think that was what they were called, they're pretty much pointless expansions. They don't add anything that is like a must-have element to the game. And even Suburbia Inc. is not a must-have, it's just a pretty decent expansion. You know, I can take or leave without it, but I've got all this space in this box taken up by 2 expansions where I'm pretty much never going to use the tiles. And some of that is down to the fact that you have to be careful with how you set the game up, because when you take some tiles out, you got to put some tiles in, it's got to be balanced, and
that just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Oh, whenever you've got that situation in the game, it really does kind of irritate me a bit. So it, you know, half of that box is, well, maybe like at least a third of that box is completely pointless. But it does look nicer. The artwork and the component quality is a lot better, as well as like the main central display, which is what kind of puts me off wanting to get the small box Suburbia with ink as an easier one. But then it would mean it would hit the table more, so I am in 2 minds. Do I bin this big one and then grab the small box versions just so that I can get it to the table easier? Or do I make the effort to play this one more and just make do with the fact that some of this space is taken up by stuff I don't really need? Because I do like having those player boards of all the different colors, although even then, that's a bit of a gimmick in itself. So this is one of those ones where maybe it was just a bit too much in a Kickstarter product to warrant actually bringing the game out. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on that collector's set, and also the Lost Mad King Ludwig. I keep calling it Lost, you know, the Castle of Mad King Ludwig, you know, that box as well. But yeah, I think Kickstarters these days do need to start being a little bit more, you know, a little bit more aware, self-aware of what their games are like to get played when you put them in these giant boxes. You know, somebody showed me the Castles of Burgundy one a while back, the one by Awakened Realms, and it's got all these little bits here. You got to take this bit out, take that bit out, work out what's this. There's some other expansion elements that aren't needed or something, and it's just like, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the game anyway, you know, I find it meh at best. But, God blimey, yeah, it's completely unnecessary, that addition. It's just too much. And if I did enjoy the game, it probably would have made this list as well. But, yeah, Suburbia. Do I, don't I?
Making it bigger doesn't make it clearer.
Number 8 is no longer in the collection anymore, because this one is one that was in one of those giant crates that used to be above my shelf up there until I eventually got rid of it, and I have got rid of all except one variant of this game, which I have kept in a box downstairs. Although, to be honest, when was the last time I played that one, you know, and that one is a bit easier to get to the table, but it's still been a while. But this one, I played it for ages. I really enjoyed it. I love the theme. It's Marvel, which is one thing that one thing I like. But Marvel Legendary got a little bit too big for its britches, didn't it? Yeah, this one just ended up in a situation where I had so many cards, so many expansions, so much stuff that I just could not remember what the hell went with what. I know a bit about superheroes, but I am not a comic aficionado, so it was just getting to the point where it's like, right, here's all the cool heroes that I really like, yeah, here's all the cool villains, and then it started getting into the weird realms of the Z teams, and it's like, who the hell cares about these people? I don't know what this is. I mean, what was one little expansion I remember? Fear Itself or something like that? I don't recognize anything from that box. It's like, what the hell are these characters? I'm not going to play with these. I've got no incentive. And then you've got the little extra rules that come with the threat deck and what you're building. And then when you're thinking of setting the game up, I've got to take this massive crate off the shelf, take out the bits, work out what heroes I want, mix the whole lot together, create a threat deck out of Lord knows what villains-wise.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is spongy and bruised.
It just got way too bloated with too much stuff. It needed to cap it at a certain point. And to be fair, I probably needed to stop collecting so much of it. And man, all that time that went into making those dividers and getting that box, oh man, there are regrets. But yeah, it's this one's less of a, oh yeah, it's got too many rules to deal with, even though there is some of that. It's more just that the amount of cards is a problem, but also something that is also apparent, particularly with this one, is the idea of difficulty spikes, difficulty creep. Because when you play Legendary to start off with, people will sort of go, all right, well, that's fairly easy. Oh yeah, because it was the main base heroes and that was the base set. But the more stuff you bring out, the more the people who make it are inclined to go, right, well, we've just upped the power level of a bunch of these new characters. Now we need the villains to compensate. The problem is the difficulty spikes for what some of those later scenarios were so damn hard that not only does the game feel too punishing or feel too swingy in terms of its luck, but then it's also making that the first half of the stuff you've ever released is pointless because that stuff can't measure up to the new villain that you've brought out. And this happens with a few other collectible based games as well, or ones where you get this much variety. It just kind of got bloated to the point where it destroyed itself from the inside and meant I didn't want to play it anymore. So yeah, be wary. If you're a completionist, this better be for a game that you are playing a lot.
I have to get off this planet.
Number 7 is a game I still enjoy. It is on my shelf, but I am definitely at that point where I'm like, why did I buy these expansions? This was a bit of a mistake. Not to mention the boxes now, this big box monstrosity. Although it's lower on my list because that box insert that it has actually does make the game a bit easier to set up. So there is a good side to this. But this is from a Kickstarter where there was, and to be fair, a lot of this bloatness is going to be Kickstarter based, I think. But this one has not only 2 big expansions, neither of which are ones that I can overly recommend, but it had so many little individual tiny mini expansions.
I thought I smelled cabbage.
I hate the phrase mini expansion because it means loads of other little bits of rules that you got to remember. Then you got to pick which ones you want, and then when you pick one, you're like, oh, how does this one work again? And it's like a page of rules for each one. It's just, oh, I can't be bothered. And this is for Vindication. I still love Vindication. I still really like the game, but honestly, just give me the base set. The base set is perfectly fine, along with maybe some of the mini expansions for the location tiles. That's all well and good. But the stuff that you got in the main expansions from the Kickstarters is too much bloat. Too many extra rules, too much fiddliness. The first one where you got those tracks that you level up for the guilds, not that entertaining. They're a bit swingy and also kind of unbalanced in some respect. All the different locations that you've got from the mini tiles, I use about 4 or 5 of them religiously, and the rest of them I don't even touch. Don't even get me started on the whole hamlets and villages one or whatever. Oh god, is that a fiddly mess. It's just it feels like its own game. It's kind of out of the way. And then the one that I really wanted to be great, the what was it called, the newest one, the story-based one, Chronicles, yes. This one you had to, you were kind of telling even more thematic story about your character and had events that went on that you tried to do. Now, the premise, great. The main mechanics of them, fine, but oh my god, do these extend the length of the game and make the game just a fiddly mess when you play above 3 players. Even at 3 players, it's quite a fiddly mess. Like, I can see myself playing Chronicles as a solo player only. Probably 2 player, but I never played this game 2 player. And if you really push me 3, but 4 and 5, I mean, I never like to play Vindication with 5 anyway. 4 I didn't mind, but Chronicles with 4, oh my god, it takes forever to deal with everything. And you've got to have more events going on at the same time, and these are not just simple events, these are game-breaking changes that can happen, and you can't have that on top of everything else that's on Vindication as well. It just got too fiddly too fast, and so, you know, all this expansion content that I've got in the box, I just don't feel like using. But I still really like Vindication as a base game with a few little tweaks or something. But why do I now have this giant box down there, you know, when a lot of this content isn't going to get used? It does have a better insert for getting the game played. And it's not like I can easily get a copy of the original Vindication box. You know, I certainly don't think I've got that. I chucked a bunch of my boxes away after I got these new ones, and I'm kind of wishing that I kept them in storage somewhere, because some of those I wish I could revert back to now. But yeah, Vindication does have that problem. The game is not out of my collection because I still enjoy it, but man, why did I buy the extra stuff?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
6 is a game that I think I am actually going to get out of the collection. It's weird, I used to love this game, I really used to love it, but I've just never felt like I wanted to bring it out anymore. I never see anyone play it. Like, this game has died a death, and I don't know whether Tom Vassell still thinks it's one of his favourite games ever, but I can't remember the last time I ever heard of him playing it, so, you know, this one has just kind of died for me in terms of my desire, and some of that is because I went and bought all the expansions, and now I'm like, oh Christ, hang on a minute, so that expansion bit is good, that bit's not that great, but I gotta remember that, but now I need to combine that bit of that expansion with that bit of that expansion in order to create the ultimate reward deck, and then the newest one, which was an expansion for the expansions, oh my god, seriously, I hate it when that happens. I'm tempted to actually sell Cosmic Encounter out of the collection. I just haven't really wanted to play it that much anymore, and this is the expansion in question. I mean, it introduced a campaign mode, like anybody in fucking any of the 7 layers of hell, or 9 layers, I forget, depending which your law you're going by, you know, whatever. Who was saying, oh, what I want for Cosmic Encounter is a campaign mode? No. I mean, this literally had to have just been that we have run out of ideas and we're going to just shove in what everybody likes, you know, the buzzword of the day, and that's campaign. But this one also expanded all the expansions, so you ended up with all these different, you know, all these different little sub things. But look at all this. I've got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different, you know, little rule sheets for all the little mini expansions. This is a bag full of all the alien races. I'm not even certain if that's every alien race in the game. There's like little, like, some cards here with some stars. I'm not even sure what they're for. There's a bunch of these moon tokens here that was in the expansion. God knows how they work. It's just, there's too much. And even with like some references that I've printed, it just means that this one's going to be a nightmare to get out again. And I'm just like, do I need to keep this? Because there's half, you know, a Calyx shelf taken up with this and the main box for it. And maybe it's just run its course. You know, I mean, if I got it out again, I could probably have a really good game with it. But I don't want to play it with more than 6. You don't really want to play it with 4, which means it's restricted to being a 5-6 player game. And if I'm going to play a game with 5 or 6 players, I'm probably playing like a social deduction game, you know, like Deception. I'd play something like Mysterium. Mysterium's fantastic for that sort of player count. Play a racing game like Heat, maybe. But yeah, this one just hasn't wanted to be brought out, and I think I just went a little bit too far with the completionist bitch. You know, you get the first reward deck, the base game, and you're kind of good, really. You don't need any of the other expansion stuff. You know, it's nice to have, but the hazard deck and the satellite things or whatever, it's like, whoopee-doo. And it's not like you're short of aliens if you stick to one base game in the first expansion. I forget what expansion it was, but it had the reward deck in it. That's the one you want to aim for. Not the hazard deck, the reward deck. But yeah, you know, is this one for the coal pile? We'll see.
And it's gone.
My number 5, I have not wanted to bring out for a while, but I can't bring myself to sell it because it looks so pretty and it's lovely and it's a mechanic I really enjoy, even though this mechanic has kind of died from this designer who's John DeClaire. But let's just be honest, the app has pretty much killed this game from a tabletop perspective, and when you get all the expansions for this game, it just becomes a little bit of a monster in terms of get out. And you might be thinking I'm talking about Edge of Darkness. I'm not. Edge of Darkness I haven't bought every single expansion for. I'm not going to buy any more expansions for it. And certainly I think mainly the expansions just add more variety, but it's still relatively easy to set the game up even with all that stuff in it. But yeah, you want to try and do that with Mystic Vale? Yeah, good luck with that. Hold please.
20 minutes later.
Big box, innit? Yep, this is Mystic Vale Conclave. This is the big storage box for it. And granted, it stores everything quite nicely, but you want to try and set the game up with all these cards around. There's quite a bit you need to think about what it is you're setting up. But not to mention the Equinox variant that was meant to allow this game to be played with 4 players ends up making the table a massive like hog mess to try and get everything played. And so with that in mind, knowing that this is really only a game that's played with minimal players, and the fact that the app, the Steam app over it, is just so much better than playing it in tabletop form, I don't know if this one's going to last long in the collection either, but oh man, I love this mechanic and it's so beautiful. But what have we got here? Manor Storm, Twilight Garden, Veil of the Wild, Harmony, was that an expansion? Veil of Might, Conclave, Nemesis, the main one. I mean, Jesus, I've got so many expansions here, each one with their own quick references, and it's like, oh Christ, how the hell do I set up the advancements in that now? Now, there's not even a huge amount in there from a box perspective, but I think just having all of this stuff means that maybe I've just got a little bit too much for it, especially with some of these like, different starting decks that you can have. But even then, unless I'm playing this with 2 or 3 people, the game is just going to take a long time to play, and the expansion with the Equinox variant just isn't that, it's not that practical. It doesn't make the game that much faster, to be perfectly honest, especially when you work out how the hell to set the thing up. So again, this could be like Cosmic Encounter, where I think maybe it has just run its course, and with the app that's out there, maybe this isn't one that can stay on the shelf anymore.
And I'm the bad guy?
My number 4, this has not killed these games out of my collection, although I have not played 2 of these games in a while, one of them in a very long time. I do really enjoy these games, and certainly I know which one's my favourite, second favourite, third favourite at this point, and some of that is down to how often I can get them played or how much I desire to play them. But this is a self-inflicted problem, certainly a first world thing where I bought far too much for the game and then didn't play it enough to warrant it. But yeah, LCGs, pick one. Yeah, pick one. Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings LCG, the Arkham Horror one a little bit further on. Yeah, basically LCGs in general are ones that are ruined by bloat, because you can just get far too much for the game to deal with the deck building side of things. Not necessarily the rules front. There's only so many extra rules that you get from like other campaign sets and stuff like that, but having to choose from all these different characters is already a nightmare. But then when the card pool is so huge, the deck building part becomes even more of a chore than it already is. Even if you do what I do, which is nick them from the internet.
You can't do that! Hey, you can't do that!
Because I can't be bothered to come up with my own deck. I haven't got time for that. But I can't just use the starter decks also only, because then I'm forgetting most of the card pool out there. Not to mention my deck won't be anywhere near as powerful as it could be. So I have to borrow them from the internet. But trying to find them all in my folders even, it's like, Christ, what set bloody gave that card? And it's like, oh, this card. What the hell does this one even do? I haven't even seen it before, because I've literally had it in an expansion and then never used it. And this is a big problem with the Arkham one. So it just becomes too much of a chore to deck build. Now, Marvel Champions is not too bad, because half the deck you have is pre-constructed. So you only have to fit in a few other extra cards, and so net decking with that one is not too bad. And because you have to stick to one colour out of the 4 main colours, again, your card pool is a bit more restricted for your deck building, which I like. But that's also why I've not made a Spider-Woman deck, because she gets to use all 4. Yeah, no. Arkham Horror. The campaigns, though, the campaigns just got there have been some weird designs in the campaigns. I hated that Scarlet Keys one. The power difficulty spikes that I mentioned with Marvel Legendary have certainly come into this one. But the card pool is huge, and you've got so many characters, and I'm like, I don't know which ones to do. And then it's like, well, what cards are you going to get in when you level up experience during a campaign? How the hell do I friggin' know? It's like, I'm not an expert at the game. You know, just give me a starter deck in that one and I would probably be good. And Lord of the Rings, similar deal, except that one has a bigger deck building requirement because you know, it's a bigger deck to begin with, but it's also a bit more of a strategic game to play from what it is you're doing. And the difficulty spikes with some of the later stuff that you bought. Again, you get some scenarios that are just damn near impossible.
I can't do this,
You know, all of these LCGs suffer a bit if you go too mad with them. And it's like, if it's one of your lifestyle games, which is the phrase we tend to use, then fair play. But if it's not, you might want to hold back and just enjoy what you have. And I wish I'd done that with the other two. Although Lord of the Rings I played for a long time, so that one's kind of justified. The Arkham Horror one, though, I don't buy anything else now. After Scarlet Keys, I stopped. So I didn't get the Hemlock Vale one or whatever it's called, and I'm not interested in the Drowned City one. I'm done. I've got everything I need for Arkham Horror LCG. If I buy anything else, it's not worth it. I have still been buying stuff for Marvel Champions, though. In fact, I've actually now managed to sort out those extra packs like Magneto and Nightcrawler and that, so they are now in their boxes where they should be. But, yeah, I do need to get that one out a bit more. So this one could be higher on the list if it had actually got rid of some of the games. But at the end of the day, it's more of a variety thing, and some LCGs are affected more than others. But yeah, still pretty high. LCGs are very prone to bloating.
Salted pork.
Okay, my number 3 is a game that I have got rid of, and I touted the praises for this one for a while, but it was then eventually replaced by the same publisher with a different version of the game, although I must admit, I haven't played that in a while either, so as much as I still respect the game and think it's really good, I haven't had a desire to play it in a long time. You know, does it deserve to be in the collection at this point? But it's an easy game for me to pick back up if I want to get back into it, so maybe I won't be so drastic. But the original game, which stemmed its successor Empires in the North, was Imperial Settlers, just the normal Imperial Settlers. And yeah, Bloat absolutely killed this one. You know, yes, the Empires of the North was a better game overall, but it was still a similar venture. Imperial Settlers was great to begin with. I mean, I prefer it to 51st State and like other similar ones to that nature. But when the expansions got to a point where they run out of like faction ideas, they started issuing more cards for the factions you already had. And previously, you just took the faction and that was it. I don't think you had to do much more than that. But then it got to a point where it introduced rules for deck building. And you can't just throw the whole deck, you can't just throw everything into the same deck that you've earned today, because you'll just create an unbalanced game. So it wanted you to deck build with Imperial Settlers. Now this is a game that is basically one person has the game and they introduce it to other people. This is not something that everybody owns between themselves like an LCG or something. So why do I want to spend time deck building in this game? And what do I know about deck building in Imperial Settlers? I don't know whether these cards are better than others. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go, right, this is my Egyptian deck build deck. And then all these other cards to do with Egyptians are placed in the baggie and kept to the side and they're never seen the light of day again. Why? Why would I want to do that? And that's the biggest problem with this, is that it just got to a point where I don't want to bother to deal with this aspect. You're now bringing out more stuff that's not useful, that's too impractical, and again, you made the game too impractical, which is why Empires of the North is the one that you can get now, and why I don't think you can even get Imperial Settlers anymore. I'm pretty sure it's out of print. So I'd be interested to know if there's anybody out there who's kept Imperial Settlers, despite the fact that that one exists. I'd be curious, but yeah, I still think Empires of the North is a great game. I just haven't played it in a while. But yeah, the Bloat eventually just killed any desire I had to keep this game going. And it's not to say that my top 3 or 4 on this list are the ones where I actually got rid of them, you know, for main reasons, because I mean Marvel Legendary was like 6. It was more just what was the impact of the bloatingness, you know, and what, you know, how much is my desire to play the game being, you know, being hampered or being, what's the phrase I'm looking for, you know, tempered by the fact that, you know, the bloatingness has happened. So yeah, Imperial Settlers, it's gone. I don't think anybody's going to talk about it ever again, and well, that's partially on the publisher.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
My number 2 is Downstairs on the Shelf. It is a game I really do like. In fact, I even rated it a 10, I think, at one point. Although that's definitely, I think, lower down for me. I think it's more closer to an 8. Probably a 9. It's close to a 9, but yeah, it's definitely going to teeter around that point. And some of it is down to the bloatiness of it. Now, technically, this has only had one big expansion. But it fell prone to Kickstarteritis, where you had all the mini expansions. And mini expansions, I think, are one of the biggest killers for any game for me, because it just, most of the time, becomes wasted content. I like Mind Clash games half the time, you know, half the time they don't put out something I like and half the time they do. This is one of the first games I remember playing for Mind Clash from David Turksey, and it's still a great game. But boy, oh boy, Anachrony. Doesn't that infinity box just put you off a little tinsy-wincy bit? Yes, I have that. It is downstairs on the shelf. And in all fairness, Anachrony might as well just have the base set and nothing else extra, because, oh my god, it's a nightmare to set the thing up and sort it out. I mean, the infinity box is not the worst storage solution I've seen, but it's certainly not the easiest one to figure out where stuff goes and to get everything out quicker, which is what you kind of want a big box to do. It's kind of like Big Box 101. But also, the game is just a very heavy, complex, fiddly game. It's a very fun game, which is why I do really like it. But man, I always worry when I'm the one who's got to get it out and set it up, because I'm like, oh dear God. You know, the base set's already pretty, like, extensive. But then the expansion, the, what was it called? I forget, but it's the one where you blip sideways on the map, you know. So normally you put your mechs out and then it can't do much else, but then the first expansion, you know, allowed you to kind of blip them from one place to another and get more uses out of them, but you risk tearing apart reality as a result. That one is a very complex expansion to add. I mean, it ups the length, it kind of balances the length to some extent, but it's just more complexity. You can't teach it to new players, and it just never gets used. Even worse with the mini expansions, though. All the mini expansions, particularly the ones that came in what they, I think, call Future Imperfect, or whatever it was, like the bits that bolted onto the latest Kickstarter for the Infinity Box, they are a waste of space. I haven't even tried them all, and half of that is because the ones that I have tried, I'm not that big a fan of. You know, we had the original ones like Doomsday and those like, I can't remember, the ones where you had these underwater lord things that you came across, so like you went excavating. It's like, that was a weird expansion. But the Future Imperfect ones just don't seem they seem a waste of space. But the other problem is that these aren't just mini expansions where you've got like, oh, a sentence of rules and it adds a little bit of variety. Each one of these mini expansions basically does a game-breaking thing where it has its own, pretty much its own gateway game worth of rules in order to actually facilitate a mini expansion. How more complex do you need your game to be, for crying out loud? I know you know, seriously, Mind Clash, Turksey, everybody, you know, there's a limit to how complicated your games need to be. And this is not just for solo modes with flow charts that, you know, stretch out to the end of time, but also just how many mini expansions your game needs. Your game is already a 3-hour plus monstrosity of a Euro game. Did it need extra stuff? Really? Honestly?
How hard can it be?
Could you have got by with just like basic additions? Like maybe, I mean, you know, you could have just added in another 3 or 4 factions. So you had 4 factions to begin with, add in a few more factions. Maybe a few different building tiles. And that would have been perfectly fine for your giant game. You know, I mean, take a leaf out of Ark Nova's book, because Ark Nova's book basically didn't add a huge amount of extra complexity from that expansion. It added, for the most part, more variety. But it did have 1 or 2 modules in it that you could use, like those extra action cards. But the action cards can be taken out of the game or taught as to new players if necessary. You know, they're not that much more complex, but they're easily removed and they still get used. God knows when I'm ever going to use any of the expansions on this one, and I think that's why it's higher up, because I don't want to get rid of the game, because I do like it, but it's just very impractical to get it played. And I already have Tricarion down there, you know, the big box of that, but Tricarion I think is actually starting to overtake Anachrony in terms of a game I like, because even Tricarion, for all the complexity that has, feels like it's easier to contend with than, you know, the Anachrony one. Even though, when was the last time we ever played with Dalgard's Academy in that one? It's, you know, I mean, that one has the advantage that a friend of mine who loves the game to bits is the one who generally sets it up. But Anachrony, yeah, oh my god, that Infinity Box, I think, was a bit of a double-edged sword. You know, you got a big fancy box and you can have everything stored in it, but was it stored particularly well? And do you ever use any of those mini expansions? And that remains to be seen.
It is just that the luxury edition has so much more eagle.
And finally, oh yay. I mean, these were in those wooden crates as well. I have the latest version of one of these games still on the shelf. There is another game that spins off from this that I keep rather than these ones because it's much easier to bring out, but God blimey, I had everything for these games. I had every expansion, every small box expansion, every big box expansion. I had 2 big wooden crates to store it all. And it just got to the point where I couldn't even bring myself to want to even attempt to bring this out because it was too bloated and too huge. And I haven't even played the latest edition of it either in a long time, but it's still there on the shelf. Eldritch Horror / Arkham Horror, those games, the big games, not the LCG, not Mansion of the Madness, that's still on my shelf and going strong, but Eldritch Horror and Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Those games got ridiculous. Arkham Horror did what Cosmic Encounter did, where it's like, right, here's the main game. Here's an expansion. Here's the expansion to add to the expansions. It's like, oh dear God, you know, a little bit too much, people. You know, and some of these were like extra boards with their own subset of rules, and then you had all the different cards. I mean, it just needed more variety. But it just got to the point where it's like, what the hell do I even start with in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition? Now, this came off a little bit better than Eldritch Horror, because Eldritch Horror was meant to be the improved version of Arkham Horror for me, and for a while it was. But then even when you throw all the expansions of Eldritch Horror in, all the big ones and all the small ones, trying to figure out which bits I'm supposed to take from each bit. You know, right, I want those setup cards, but then I want those characters, and I want those... Do I want those extra plot cards, the story cards? No, do they really add much? And right, we're using this board with this villain. Right, how does this villain work? This one works a bit differently. This one actually takes out cities on the map. Okay, that's different. Maybe we should just go with a simpler one, I don't know.
Don't know, I've gone cross-eyed.
And because of those crates, it was a nightmare to even bring it to a table. And some of the, like I say, storage I think had an impact on this one a lot. You know, I made a poor decision about how to store this game. But if I hadn't used that storage solution, I would have had box after box after box after box storing all this, having no idea where to get anything out of. You know, I would have still probably had the same problem. So, you know, these two are not in my collection anymore. It took me ages to get rid of them, because obviously it's a massive crate, and I mean, this is another thing that bloating does for the game. Unless you find a die-hard fan who really wants everything that the game has, they're very difficult to sell. You know, because somebody's got to think, well, I only wanted to, you know, try this game and see if I liked it. I didn't need everything for it. You know, it's a little bit daunting and intimidating, and so I was lucky to be able to sell those. It took a long time, but my God, I'm glad they're gone now. You know, this one, you know, really did implode with the amount of bloat it has, and it's actually practically a meme for Fantasy Flight Games for how much these Arkham games got expansions. I mean, hell, this started the whole meme of FFG in general, which is that every time FFG release anything, you know it's going to have 1 million expansions, because that's just the way they work. Even though the games that need more expansions don't get enough expansions, a la Star Wars Outer Rim. You know, it's kind of mad. We had like 8 to 10 expansions for each of Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror, and we had to fight tooth and nail to get one for Outer Rim. Thank you, Fantasy Flight. So yeah, this one was just a big killer. It really did kill itself by it. Bloat, and yeah, anybody want to dispute that one?
Is this a trick question?
So there you have it. Games that have been tempered, hindered, reduced in my opinion, or just flat out gone from the collection because they got too bloated for their own good. And as I say, it is a partially self-inflicted thing. You know, the publishers should have probably thought a bit harder as to what kind of expansions they wanted to sell, or just how many expansions the game needed, honestly. But then it's also partially on me as a consumer for actually buying the stuff in the first place and going a little bit bonkers with it. And some of these games were bought at a time and age when I was a bit more naive on this sort of thing, where I was like, yeah, I want everything because I want to have so much variety for this game that I really enjoy. Nowadays, though, I'm a lot more picky. I don't have as much time on my hands, and so these things now, play more into my choice of games. But there are a few other, honorable mentions that I do want to go through. So if I bring up my phone, I can look at which ones didn't make the list. Carcassonne, yeah, I mean, that one, you grab the first 2 big expansions for that one because they are really good, but then the subsequent big expansions, not particularly worth it. This one doesn't hit the list as much, though, because I kind of mainly got bored with Carcassonne, not really from its bloatiness, and you've got to go out of your way to buy a lot of those tiny little mini expansions. I mean, certainly that would have been bloated to its heart's content, but I never really bothered with those. Everdell, I did seriously consider. I don't enjoy the game enough to want to stick it on this list, so I wasn't exactly like, oh, I love the game and now it's too bloated. But let's face it, Everdell's got a few too many expansions, doesn't it? And they are not all particularly good. I mean, if you're a solo player, I hear the Spider one is fine. The Belfair one, the latest one with the train and all that, I never see anyone play it, so clearly it can't be that popular, or it's only for the die-hard fans. I still have not played the one with the animal mounts that you can get. I forget what it's called. Something beginning with S. It's not Sanctuary, it's something. But, you go on Expedition and Pass. I would like to play it with that. But then the first one, the Pearlbrook one, it's not a very good expansion. In fact, I think it's a pretty bad expansion for the game. So it's got too many, and they're not all that great. So definitely, I think, bloated. And let's face it, yeah, don't get me started on that giant collector's box. Crying out loud. Dominion, I do have Dominion downstairs. I do like it. I stopped buying expansions for it quite a long time ago, though. In fact, I've only bought, like, my choice favourite expansions for the game, and then I stopped. So that game hasn't really been destroyed by bloating for me. But yeah, I can understand that if you were to buy every single expansion for Dominion, you probably would have at least long ago have reached a point where it's like, why the hell am I buying so many cards? But yeah, definitely one that's prone to it, but it didn't really affect me. Age of Steam, well, I can't stand the game, so I didn't really want to think about talking about that one, but yeah, how many maps exist for Age of Steam? One of the best quotes I've ever heard from Tom Vassal's, which is very apt for this game, is that there are more maps for Age of Steam than there are people who like the game, which does seem pretty true at the moment. When your Age of Steam maps can go on the friggin' sun or have zombies, you know that you're jumping the shark a little bit here. Let's see, Terraforming Mars? Terraforming Mars I don't think has been killed too much by its bloat. That's the thing, and I don't mind some of the expansions, but I really just want to play Terraforming Mars with Venus and the 2 Prelude expansions. Preludes are essential for the game, you need them. Venus just adds more variety. It doesn't really add any extra complexity, so it's an easy one to just throw into the game and have it. Colonies is fine, but the Prelude reduced the length of the game. Colonies added back to the length for the game, and it overpowered the power station cards because it's the best way to pilot your ships, and it's more complexity, it's more stuff to teach, more table hog stuff, and it's like, I can take or leave that one. And the less said about that garbage Turmoil expansion, the better. So yeah, that one probably is going to get to a point where it gets too bloated, but it doesn't really kill the game for me. And most people agree on the whole Turmoil one. What else we got? Millennium Blades. Millennium Blades, I mean, my friend has this one, and God blimey, yeah, he does have everything for it, and it is quite a lot of cards, but it doesn't add a huge amount of extra complexity. It's more just more cards, more choices that you could have, but it's not like you'll ever remember what's in anything from game to game, so each game's going to feel quite new. Most of the rules are in the base form of the game, and all the extra bits are mainly just more variety for nostalgia's sake. So I don't think this one's really killed itself from bloating. I mean, I don't own the game anyway, but yeah, if I was buying the game, I probably would just get the base set, and maybe like some of the mini expansions that add a little bit. People might be wondering about Pursuit of Happiness, because I got a lot of expansions for that one. Not really. I mean, I do like the expansions that are in this game. Do I use all of them at once? Only if I'm playing it solo, really, or if I'm playing with people who really know the game. So, I mean, Pursuit of Happiness is borderline at that too bloated thing. I mean, certainly I don't think any more cards should come out for Pursuit of Happiness. I think it's done. What is in this box is good enough. You don't need any more. And if it came out with any more, I think it would enter this list. But it's, it could be in the teens. It could be in the teens. Marvel United. The game's alright, it's average for me, but yeah, God blimey, the amount of money people spend on this game for all those expansions, is it really worth it, guys? I mean, honestly, really, truthfully worth it? Come on. And I did briefly consider Innovation as well, but that one hasn't really died from it. I mean, I still love Innovation as a game. The first one, the first expansion, what was the first one called? Echoes of the Past, you know, very good expansion for the game. But yeah, when you're teaching the game, you can't really throw the expansions in, and all the subsequent expansions in the big deluxe set that I've got never get played. But it hasn't really killed the game for me, because it's still a small box, and I'll still happily just play it in its base set form, and it's easy to separate out those cards. You know, you don't need to mix it all together and then try and extract them all out. But yeah, the expansions aren't particularly great unless you play Innovation on a massive regular basis. So yeah, you don't need to go quite too mad with it. Yeah, so that is my list for top 10 games that have been tempered by bloatness. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down below in a comment. So, which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you disagree with? And particularly, which games have been destroyed, hurt, or just hindered a bit, you know, for you because of bloatness, and why? You know, do you match any of the reasons I've given, or is there another reason which has got in the way that I haven't even thought of with my choices? So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube, let me know your comments down below, and consider subscribing to the channel, as well as possibly even the Patreon, where it keeps this channel supported, because it is not my day job, it is a side hobby at the end of the day, which I have to self-fund. You know, the Patreons help keep this channel running, and I can't thank you guys enough. Until next time, regardless of whether you feel like you're putting on a little bit of weight or not, it's still only a game, so bye for now.